Hello everyone, welcome to the January 14th League of Legends slate. We have a 5-gamer, so let's just get straight back to the recap. Start off with the LPL games. So in the first series we had IG against ThunderTalk. I was on the ThunderTalk side. Obviously, ThunderTalk are just bad. I think the pass I gave them from their first series was too much. Looking at how a couple of the lower end teams in the LPL have played so far, I think ThunderTalk is definitely the worst team in the league. I don't know. I loved Puff and Southwind when they were on Vici. I thought they'd be able to reclaim some of that magic, but they just have not. This team looks so bad. They just bleed gold everywhere. They don't do well team fighting. They don't do well pretty much doing anything. And going forward, probably just gonna have to perma X them out. As much as I loved them, Puff and Southwind specifically, they just have twice now looked so outclassed. You just have to kind of accept that, I guess personally at least, that ThunderTalk are probably the worst team in the LPL. As far as IG goes, they looked about what I expected. Maybe their AD, Zhao Yuzhe, looked a little bit better than I expected, but it's hard to tell when they're going against probably the worst team in the league. And then for the second series, we had Weibo against WE. The first game was obviously a pretty big comeback from Weibo. It was kind of like a half throw from Team WE. It just seemed like Weibo was maybe like a slow starter here. They just weren't really there. The Shy continuously getting caught out at bad times. I mean, I could probably do an hour-long podcast on hating on the Shy, but I don't think it'll change necessarily anybody's perception. So we move on. But they did end up getting a clean second game victory, which was a little bit better from them. I still do wish they have Sword Art playing. I'm not entirely sure why On is playing. Maybe something internally, maybe who knows what it is exactly. But they looked okay. I think they're going to be about where they were last game. It's like last split, kind of as like mid-level gatekeepers. Odds are if you beat Weibo, then you're going to be a good top-level team. If you lose to Weibo, you're going to be a bottom team. So that's what we expect. WE did not look good. Stay and Kadaya were not good. Bubu kind of ran it down. View and Shanks weren't terrible, but again, Shanks is playing Corki. Probably like one of the easiest champions to pilot in current mid lane meta. So I'd probably have like WE as like a bottom 3 team, and then Weibo was like a mid-level team, maybe like in the 7 to 10 range. I'm not sure exactly. Then heading over to the LCK, in the first series we had the upset of Hanwha Life getting the reverse sweep over Nongshim. If you guys remember what I said yesterday, I definitely did not see this coming at all. Nongshim have much better players in every position. They looked good. They looked okay in game one. There was a little bit back and forth. It was close for a while, and then Nongshim kind of pulled away. So it kind of looked like what you would expect, and then they just like never got it together for game 2 and 3. It was bad early games. Dread seems a little out of place in this team. I'm not liking this. I mean, it's only the first series, and if I can give ThunderTalk of all teams a pass on a series, then I could probably do the same with Nongshim here. It's hard to garner a lot from the Hanwha side also. I think maybe they're going to be someone that's like overvalued going forward because of this win, but I'm still not thinking that they necessarily look that great either. I just feel like this is a little bit more of a letdown from Nongshim than it was a triumph from Hanwha. Then heading on to the Damwon versus KT game. This was a series that I had pinned as a little bit closer, maybe going to like a third game. It was a Dom 1 2-0. I feel like the games were, the first game at least was close. The second game was like a, obviously ended at 24 minutes. So you have to believe that Dom 1 was just like the much better team. I do like this Dom 1 team going forward. Canyon, Showmaker, Duck Dom, and Kellen are strong players in their respective places. It's just hard to envision them necessarily like winning a lot. Maybe like competing for worlds, that kind of thing, with this team. The I mean, they're going to be like top 3, top 4 ish team for sure in the LCK. But Hoya just seems like a little bit too much of a weak spot. They didn't seem that crazy strong in this game, but maybe that was just because KT looked not bad. Also, I actually like these players on the KT side. Of course, we know Rascal and Cuz from I believe they played together with Genji, Arya coming over from Detonation Focus Me in the Japanese league, aiming from the LPL, and then Life was on Genji, I believe, also. So they still have some synergy, I think, in that retrospect, I guess, in that area. I like both these teams like okay going forward, but there wasn't like a crazy amount to garner. This one kind of went as expected. Going forward, we have a 5-gamer here. We start off with, what is the first game? The LGDF PICKS. These are all zoomed in for some reason. Obviously, kind of just have to favor FPX a good amount here. They're lined at minus 750. I mean, that price is steep, but I think it's somewhat deserved. Excuse me. Sorry. FPX is definitely better. They looked pretty good in their first series, getting their upset over. Who do they beat? It doesn't show up. I don't remember who they beat. It was RNG. They got that upset over RNG. That's probably why the line is so wide. Is because they got that win over RNG. Although they did look good, that was a weird series overall. And then LGD getting stomped by Anyone's Legend was not good for them. I do like FPX here. Probably get the 2-0. Again, I think you're probably, for the DFS aspect, mainly focusing on the top side, although LWX was involved a good amount. So the player I'd probably leave off here is Hong. But although you could probably go with Hong instead of Xiaolo, who there's not really like a big disparity presenting itself so far for FPX. Heading over to the second LPL series, that is Anyone's Legend versus OMG. If you guys know me, you know that I will take Anyone's Legend as an underdog against absolutely anybody. It's no secret that they have like a unique playstyle of fighting over anything at any time. And I think this is actually like a decent matchup, or I guess like stylistic matchup against OMG here, because OMG did not look necessarily like proactive or great in their first matchup either. So I'm kind of leaning the Anyone's Legend side here. Maybe I'm just like too much of a fan of this team, or always giving them the benefit of the doubt sort of thing. But I mean, it's hard to like ignore their DFS upside, considering the amount of like Fiesta games that they play. And OMG did not look like fantastic either, especially in the bottom lane with Abel and Cold. Although Shanji did have a good first game, it's also hard to tell when they were going against Thunder Talk, who looked like the worst team in the league. So for the second game, I'm going to go with Anyone's Legend. Maybe 2 I'm gonna go with a 2-0. I actually think they get this game done pretty cleanly. I'm liking the Anyone's Legends roster. It's sad that they still have Forge instead of Maple, who I believe is their true mid laner, but he's just not able to get into uh, either he's not able to get into China or he's not able to play in the LPL for like the first week. So he will be joining the team eventually. It's not ideal to have Forge there, but he's also like been with the team for a while, so it's not like a complete fill-in. So I'm taking the Anyone's Legend side. I'll go with the 2-0. Maybe that's a little bit too bold of a prediction, but I think it seems reasonable. Then heading over to the third LPL game, we have RNG against JDG. RNG minus 350. This one actually seems about. I guess I'd never touched on the Anyone's Legend OMG odds. These seem about right. I would have it maybe like a little bit more of a pick 'em, maybe OMG minus 120, Anyone's Legend plus 100, something like that. But kind of regardless, I'll take the Anyone's Legend shot, especially in the DFS format. I think this OMG Anyone's Legend game is probably the one to target from the DFS perspective on either side. Then heading over to the RNG JDG one, like I said, the odds seem about right. We can't discount these JDG players too much. Like I said, I still do respect Kanavi, Yagao, and Missing. 369, of course, is a history of being like three different players. They either say he's a 3 or 6 or a 9 on the scale out of 10, depending on how he's playing that day. I feel like even if you do kind of roll a 9 here, it's still just so hard. Like RNG just has such good players at every position, it's hard to ignore. They did look a little bit out of sorts their first series, but I'm not going to put a lot of stock into one series like I have been kind of across the board. I want to try to get maybe at least a second series of, I guess, data or points or just at least some eye test because, in the LPL, at least when you play, I believe, what is it now, 16, 17 games or 17 series, a split, putting a lot of stock into one series just seems a little bit like a mistake. So I will take RNG 2-0 here. Maybe 2-1. I could see JDG maybe getting one, and maybe RNG still hasn't gotten everything together. But I mean, it's just hard to imagine RNG not being the best team in the league here. Although I do like JDG maybe going forward against some other teams, it's hard to pick them against who I perceive to be the strongest team in the LPL. Heading over to the LCK now for their games. I don't know why that mentally took me so long. We have Genji DRX. DRX, they let us down pretty heavily in the first game. They let me down at least. I picked them to win, and they got stomped pretty bad. Looked pretty bad against Live Sandbox. So this should be an interesting game. When we look over at the odds, Genji is a minus 550 favorite. That seems a little crazy to me. Although I do rate this Genji roster pretty highly. Like, I like Doran. I think Pina is probably like the most underrated player in the world. He was like an insanely talented jungler last year and probably doesn't get the credit necessarily that he deserves. If you guys know me, you know that I would put Chovy in like the same vein as The Shy or Jackie Love or iBoy. They just have such a twisted warp perception level compared to what their actual skill is. Although Chovy is not a bad player by any means. I don't want that to get kind of like lost in translation here. But I think his like laning prowess and his CS numbers, that kind of stuff, gets overdone so dramatically when comparing him to like prominent team fighters or people who can make impacts around the map, like at Doinby, for example. Although everyone else would rate Doinby very highly, I don't think Chovy is like near that conversation at all. Although I would have Chovy in like around the top 10. I think his like legend, I guess, kind of precedes him in such a dramatic fashion that this team probably gets overrated pretty heavily. Ruler and Lehens, obviously very strong players in their own right, but I don't think on paper that they're like that dramatically better than DRX. Maybe there is something to say for how bad DRX looked in their first series, but again, I'm going to maintain the trend here of kind of not buying into too much of one series. Maybe you can say that's naive of me to continue to give like a team like this a pass, but minus 550 is extremely one-sided. I don't think there's that much of a gap between any of these players and any of these roles. Maybe Doran over Kingen. I do think Gen G are better kind of everywhere except for maybe in the bottom lane. I do rate Deft and Barrel over Ruler and Lehens. But I don't think there's going to be like that much of a discrepancy between Zika and Chovy, at least when it comes to like later games. Although, Doran, Peanut, and Chovy are all better than King and Pioshik and Zika, I still think like the possibility is there to kind of upset this. I don't think I'm going to get to the DRX side from the betting or DFS perspective, but that it is going to scare me off a little bit enough to at least kind of like X this game out. I'll give Gen G the 2-1, like I said, because I think they do have the better players in like two of the most important positions, which is jungle and mid. But I'm not buying this number at all. Then heading over to the second series, it is T1 against Fredit Brion. I don't think there's going to be a lot to say about this series at all. I mean, T1 is a minus 1,000 favorite. Obviously, that number is insane, at least like for esports. You never want to take a minus 1,000 in esports just because of how fickle it can be. But you have Sword, Umpty, Lava, Hannah, and Delight. Like, this roster just bad. There's not much else to say. They're going to be like the worst team in the league. I don't think there's much of a question about that. And then you have T1, who is probably going to be fighting for a title, if not the best team in the league. So that's just a disparity there. T1 probably do get it done 2-0. I think these are both boring teams, at least when it comes to like kill totals and that kind of thing. So I don't think it's that much of a target for DFS purposes. Maybe you could get there with like a secondary stack, filling in the 2-man. I definitely think their team slot is probably going to be the most expensive. Nope, they're actually the second. 5,600. That's a reasonable team slot price. So I like that for sure. That's one of my favorite things in DFS is getting a 2-man and then a team slot different from the 2-man. Just try to get unique that way and just playing like a one-off team slot. So you have a 4-stack of players, a 2-stack of players, and then a team slot one-off. That is my go-to build. Maybe you don't want to follow me because I am 0 for 4 this year for my DFS rosters. I feel like I have not had necessarily bad takes as far as the teams and the games go, but my construction just has not been there, being in the right spots for sure. I'm just picking kind of bad spots. But of course, we are firing it right back today on the 5th day. So to quickly recap, I will go with FPX 2-0, anyone's legend. Maybe I'll go with the 2-0. I'll just put the bold one out there, I guess. RNG 2-0, T1 2-0, and then Gen G 2-1. So the only one underdog with the anyone's legend thing. But if you know me, I'm firing anyone's legend anytime, anywhere, no matter what. I had them last year at like plus 700 against IG. They can always coin flip a game. So, pretty much a word to the wise with anyone's legend series. Just bet the underdog no matter what. If anyone's legend is plus 600, they could win it. And if somehow anyone's legend is a favorite, just bet the other side because they have ability to lose and win games like nobody else. They can find crazy wins. They could find crazy losses. That's just how they play. So in terms of like bloodiness of what to expect, I think anyone's legend OMG is probably the front runner in that respect. Probably FPX LGD second. And then maybe it's JDG, RNG, or Genji, Derex. And these would probably be like kind of tied for third, fourth. And then T1, Freddy Brion is probably last. I don't see how this series picks up a lot of action at all. So I think that's going to be it for me today. Good luck to everyone. Hopefully we can turn it around and end the 0 for 4 cold streak that at least I'm personally on, DFS wise. Good luck to everyone. Thank you.